With us this half hour in the studio today, a name that many of you will recognize. Chief Judge in Calhoun County, Michael Jaconette, is with us this half hour. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Thank you for the time today.
My pleasure.
Well, we've talked on several occasions about making this time, and it's been just busy all the time.
It is busy in the courts.
The legal system goes and goes.
Yes, indeed.
You were a prosecutor here in Calhoun County for a long time.
Yes, I was a prosecutor for 17 and a half years.
Boy.
And, came back home. I went to law school out of state, but came back home and I was raised in Battle Creek and wanted to come back. And I wanted to be a prosecutor, so I had the opportunity to work in that office for 17 years, and it was a great time.
Mm-hmm. Does this give you, having been a prosecutor, does it give you a unique perspective as a judge?
Well, there are a number of judges currently in our county who have been prosecutors. There are a few that have never been prosecutors, and I think as long as you have some level of courtroom experience, it's helpful when you're a judge. Being a prosecutor, obviously, you're in court all the time,
right.
So you get used to things like the rules of evidence and hearing different styles of argument, and your ability to kind of sift through what makes sense and maybe what's just argument just to fill time. I think that gets honed a little bit when you're a prosecutor, and when you're a defense attorney, too, for that matter.
Right. We've certainly seen it dramatized that attorneys tend to, as they become litigators, they get into situations which are unfamiliar in the courtroom, and you sort of gain experience as you go. Is that accurate, would you say? I think of stories like The Rainmaker and stuff like that, Grisham's story about this young lawyer that wins this big case, and he's never tried a case before, and you sort of get a feel for when you first enter the court as a new attorney, you're really sort of green.
I think there's a little bit more of a learning curve than winning $1 million case as your first case. I don't think that
right.
may happen. I can't think of a time it's happened in Calhoun County, but there's a reason why a lot of TV shows have courtroom drama as their theme, because it's interesting. It deals with the man's inhumanity to man and foibles of people, and so there's a lot of interesting subject matter that
Sure.
comes into play in the courts. But I think getting up to speed to trying that $1 million case, I think, takes some time. Getting up to speed to trying that murder trial takes some time, and so most people ease into it a bit. I don't think that would make for a good novel, though, with John Grisham. The other thing about John Grisham novels, as I remember, is it, and I stopped reading them after a while, but it seemed that the protagonist always ended up on a beach in some island with $1 million in their bank account. Somehow it always ended up that way, and I wasn't able to figure that one out.
Where does that happen?
So here I am.
That's the Hollywood portion of the story, I guess. All right, we're talking with Judge Mike Jaconette. Back in a moment on WBCK 814. WBCK Monday. We're here with Judge Mike Jaconette, Chief of the Calhoun County Courts these days. That's a recent development, isn't it?
It is, as of January 1st. All the courts in our county have had their own chief judge, and the chief judge is essentially the employer of the courts. And so the circuit court and the district court and the probate court are our three courts that we have. And we've, for as long as I can remember, we've had chief judges in each of the courts. The Supreme Court has gone towards a model of having, in counties our size and smaller, and some bigger ones too, to having one single chief judge for all of the courts in the county. And quite frankly, we were, I think, operating pretty well on our model that we had, but it became clear that we were going to be moving towards a single chief judge. And as of January 1st, that's me. And so I'm now the chief judge of all three courts. I do have a perspective, I think, that's maybe a little bit different than a lot of my colleagues on the bench, because I have been in all three courts either as a practitioner or as a judge, and that's a little bit of a unique perspective. Not a lot of the judges have had much experience in the probate court, for example. Some tend to focus on cases that primarily would end up in circuit and in their practice. So I do have that advantage of having been in the three different courts. But it really is a change as far as the different administrative obligations, the people you have to deal with, and so I'm getting my feet wet with that.
And this is by virtue of the fact that judges have been attorneys, generally speaking, and usually there is some sort of specialty they undertake.
Correct.
And that just may mean that they don't cross jurisdictional lines too much as far as courts are concerned.
That's true, and once you become a judge and you're in your own element doing your own types of cases that your court handles, you really don't see a lot of the other cases that will come to the courthouse. You're doing your own thing, and your colleagues are handling their caseload, and sometimes there's a mix, and you'll have a number of judges that will be handling the same type of case. For example, all of the district court judges hear the preliminary exams for felony cases that are charged, landlord-tenant cases, that sort of thing. But except in rare circumstances, I'm the only judge that would hear guardianships and conservatorships. I am the only judge that would hear estate matters. The circuit judges are the only judges that hear the felony jury trials.
Right.
There are 2 circuit judges that are assigned to the family division, and then 2 that are assigned to the civil criminal division. So everyone has their own niches where they're focusing on with their courts. But the attorneys who become judges generally have had their own niches that they've focused on too.
Sure. Is the structure that you've alluded to here, this relatively new structure, a model that is being emulated in other counties?
It is. It's, as I said, probably I would say the majority of the smaller counties, particularly counties where you have all of the courts in one location, most of them have gone to this single judge model, and some of the counties that are bigger than ours as well. We are, I probably will get this wrong, I think we're number 13 as far as our size goes in the state, and somebody could correct me on that, I suppose, but we're in that range.
And the notion is this is an efficiency sort of move.
Correct. There are certain administrative tasks that each chief judge has to deal with, and in a lot of ways we were reinventing the wheel 3 separate times in the 3 different courts.
Right.
Why not just have one person handle it all, and then we're speaking with one voice to the public, to our funding unit, policy issues. What will happen is that we have had a judicial council in Calhoun County, which we are going to continue, which is the chief or presiding judges of the 3 courts and the court administrators. It used to be the chief judges and the court administrators. Now it's the chief judge. The chief judge is required to appoint presiding judges, which I've done, and then the court administrators will all meet. And generally, we meet monthly. Generally, the decisions that are made are by consensus, and I don't see that that's going to change in any great way. I think we're still going to be meeting and trying to figure out as a group what's best in how we serve the public, and how we can be more efficient in how we provide that service to the public. And I think that it's better to have a group of people meeting and having ideas rather than just one person saying, well, here's how it's going to be.
Putting all the heads together.
Yep.
Right.
Oh, I need to, do we have a minute?
Yes.
My youngest daughter is homesick,
Oh.
and I told her when I left that I would be saying her name on the radio. So, Ellie Jaconette, do whatever Nani says.
I thought you were going to say get well soon.
Well, she's on the road to recovery. But
okay, good. All right. We're talking with Chief Judge Mike Jaconette. In a moment, we'll come back and talk about other innovations in courts these days. That's coming up in just a minute on WBCK. For WBCK Monday, Chief Judge Mike Jaconette is with us this half hour on WBCK. Battle Creek guy, big family,
That's correct.
In fact,
You know my
little
brother.
side note, I worked with Mike's brother for a long time in broadcasting. He's still in broadcasting. I am too, just not in the same places.
That's right. We need to say his name. His name is Dave.
Dave Jaconette, yes. And Dave is one of those guys, and I think it's a Jaconette family trait, but Dave is one of those guys you can bring up just about any topic, and he can have a conversation about that topic.
He is the one that is most blessed with that trait. Yes, he is. I think from the people that I know, he is the most well-read person on a wide spectrum of topics.
Yes.
And he, like you in Grand Rapids, is a talk show host.
Yes.
So that's part of his preparation. But he just has a lot of interest.
He does, and it just comes naturally to him. So yeah, and he was a terrific influence on me back in the good old days.
I will let him know that.
Yes. So we've been talking about court innovations, and one of those is special courts that have special focuses.
Yeah, we in Calhoun County we have a number of, we call them specialty courts, treatment courts. And it began with Judge Al Garbrecht, who's now retired, began our women's drug court program.
Mm-hmm.
And that eventually morphed into having both a women's drug court and a men's drug court. Both are circuit court programs, so primarily dealing with felony offenses. Then Judge John Hallisey, who's now just recently appointed to circuit court,
Mm-hmm.
Began a sobriety treatment court in the district court, which has been very successful. All of these courts, quite frankly, have been very successful as far as not having as much recidivism with the participants. We now have a couple of other courts in the district court that are treatment-based. There's a veterans treatment court that Judge Frank Line handles. There is a street court program, which Jim Norlander in the district court handles. And now we've just started up here in the last few months a mental health treatment court that I'm overseeing. That is a treatment court that involves both offenders who have both felony offenses and misdemeanor offenses. And it is overseen by our judicial council, and I'm the judge from that council that's assigned to that court. And it makes some sense because the probate judge does have a lot of the workload is dealing with people who are mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
The criminal caseload is something that the probate court doesn't typically handle, but we all have a concurrent jurisdictional assignment, so we all can handle cases from different courts if necessary, and this is one of those situations where it's necessary.
The whole premise of all of these courts is the notion that we're dealing with some people who have an addiction or some other ailment, I suppose, that deserves specialized attention.
With the idea that if whatever that issue or ailment might be, if that is not treated or approached in a different way, we are going to see these people back again and again, sure, committing crimes and back in the justice system. And quite frankly, a long time ago I learned it's not necessarily a good person or a bad person. And in this scenario, we're not talking about whether somebody is a good person or a bad person.
Right.
We're talking about people that have issues that have led them into the criminal system. They've committed a crime. And what can we do to help them so they don't come back into the system? That's the goal for all of these programs, and to free up jail beds, to give them the information they might need or the contacts that they might need, so when they do have these temptations or these things that arise sometimes on a daily or hourly basis, mm-hmm, they have ways of dealing with it differently than the behavior that brought them into the court system. And
the proof's in the pudding, as they say.
It is. In the ones that are more long-standing, we do have a history established of success with the drug courts and with the sobriety court. The newer courts that I mentioned were just in the beginning stages, but we're excited about it. I do want to mention Kate Ambrose is the district court administrator, and she was involved in helping us put together this mental health treatment court. Mm-hmm. And so she's been a big part of it too, so I don't want to leave her out. There are a lot of people, the people from Summit Point and other people that really have an interest in helping in the court that I'm involved in have made a lot of difference. So.
Right, and everybody is interested in the notion that we can save money by recognizing these issues and diverting folks into a different path.
That's a goal. It really it's a big goal is to divert the funds that we would otherwise be spending on incarceration. How can we better use those funds so we don't see these same people back and have to reincarcerate them?
Right.
And but beyond that, there's just this idea of, and it's a different notion, quite frankly, for the courts. How can we help these people so that they don't reoffend, as opposed to warehousing people?
Right. It's a tremendous, tremendous thing. Boy, this time has flown, and maybe we'll get another chance before too much longer to pick up where we leave off. I sense that we could go on and on probably on these topics for a long time. We just scratched the surface, but we appreciate the time you've given us.
Thank you very much.
Chief Judge in Calhoun County, Mike Jaconette on WBCK. 8:30.